Okay, so the seven Manglar Bahus essential sequential, even though it says to have much learning, but it's very deep. So we're going to learn more today. So those of you who can read Burmese, so it said, what is to have much learning, or what does it mean by that count hu the miago jamian tuta shibade? Now we're learning, and what we learn also depends on what age we are. When you were this little, or when you were just born, you learn about colors, you learn about sound, you learn about, oh, mommy, daddy, mama, dada. And you start, depending on your age, right? Then you grow up. Depending on what age you are and what grade you are, your level of learning go up and up and up. Now, in Buddhism and in Burmese culture, we divide our life into three different portions. So in Burmese, we say this: Patama Yuema Pinya Sha, Dutiya Yuema Usad Sha, Tatiya Yuema Tayasha. Now, what does it mean by that is Patama means the first, right? Yuema, your first stage of life. If you divide your whole lifespan into three different portions, right? Now, the very first portion, you learn and you try to gain as much as you can on your education. Now, your second stage of your life, you focus on gaining wealth. Third stage of your life, you focus more on spiritual wealth. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that when you're little, you do only education. You still have to focus on your wealth and your financial wealth and your spiritual wealth. But you're doing more so of the education. So in other sense, when you're at early stage of your life, you're doing most of your hard work or your intellectual quotient, your IQ. That's the reason why you're going to school. That's the reason why you're reading, you're learning, right? You're doing homework, project, because your first stage of life is geared towards the education, which is your head, your brain, which is your intellectual quotient. Now you get to a little older age, my age, your parents' age, right? Because the average lifespan of human being today, what's the average lifespan of human being today? Let me, Kathleen.
I think either 70 or 75.
All right, somewhere around 75, depending on which country you live in, right? So in United States today, it's 78, right? So that's average. If you are a male or a guy, your average is about 75. If you're a lady, it's about 80. Well, you're lucky if you're a lady. So because you live longer. If you're a guy, like myself, too bad. You live a little shorter, okay? But because of the science and technology, we have a lot of medicine, we have a lot of procedures. So because of that, a lot of people are living longer day by day. So, but if you go to Burma, right, your average lifespan is about 68, okay? Now, if you're a lady, you could live up to 75, okay? So it also depends on where you live, which part of the world you live in. But no matter what you do is you break your average lifespan into 3 different categories, 3 different pieces. Now let's take it, because people are living a lot longer these days. It could be, you could live as much as like 90 years old. Okay, if we take 90, if you break it into 3 even portions, it will be 30, then 60, then 90. Or if you say, no, I think I am going to be up to 75, you're going to break it into 25, then 50, then 75, right? So if you break it that way, now the moment that you're born all the way to you're 25 years old, you are focusing more so on your education, more so on your brain, your head, and your IQ. Again, I will repeat, this is very important, okay? It doesn't mean that you do only education. You'll focus on these 2 also, but not as much. But now, let's say you're 26, right? You better focus more on your financial wealth, okay? Now, when you hit to 50, now provided that you think your lifespan is 75, when you hit to 50, you start doing your spiritual wealth, okay? So that's the general guideline. It is not that specific, since we don't know how long we will live, right? But the fact that we're living longer and longer, chances that it could be 30 that you will be studying up to 30 years old. For example, like if you pick a profession like to become a doctor, you might be in medical school and doing your residency and fellowship and a lot of postgraduate studies, then it could be till you're 30 or even longer, right? Then after that, you started building your wealth. After that, when you hit 60, you better either retire or cut down what you are doing and focus on your spiritual wealth, okay? Now, that's the Buddhist guideline, or our traditional cultural guideline, right? That's what we go by. So, for example, if you're still working really hard just to make money when you're 65 or 70 years old, something's wrong with you, right? That's the moment that you should cut down, relax, chill, and meditate, and do all these things good for other people, right? So with that guideline, okay, we're going to know exactly where we focus on. Right now, a lot of you are focusing on your IQ because you're in the first stage of your life. My stage is trying to work hard and try to build my financial wealth. Now, very soon, I really need to focus on spiritual wealth, which I am doing to a certain extent, right? So these things, we will balance it out. Okay, so now let's do this. The first stage of life, okay? And the second stage of life, and third stage of life. So where will we put our IQ, our EQ, and SQ in these boxes of the triangles? Okay, so let's think through. So our first stage of life, so the biggest quadrant of this triangle, what do you think? Should we have IQ or EQ or SQ? Dylan.
IQ.
IQ, okay, all right, very good. And what about this second one? That should be your EQ, right? Now the top one should be the SQ, right? So that's how it should be, right? Your first stage of life, because you're focusing more on your education. You focus so much on your brain, your head, because your brain is so fresh, you can absorb anything very quickly, right? So let's say you're learning this 38 Manglers. You recite it very quickly, you absorb it, you get it good. If I start studying that today, it will take me 2 months to memorize it. But your brain is so good right now, right? You can absorb it right away because your IQ is so good, right? So that's the reason why right now at your age, you should be reading a lot of books. You should be going to library. You should be going to school. You learn a lot of subjects. You learn a lot of languages, right? Then you do IQ. Well, it doesn't mean that you don't do any of this. You still do EQ. You gotta make friends. You gotta do social dealing, right? You gotta manage your stress. You gotta manage your other stress, and you gotta do spiritual quotient too, right? So because most of you are right here, right? Now we're going to show you, like, I am here. Okay, your parents, most of your parents will be here. So now what they're doing is their EQ will be the largest. They're gonna make more and more friends, business partners, right? They're gonna go to the temple. They're gonna go to the monastery, make a lot more friends, right? Because if they wanna do any business, if they wanna gain something, then you're gonna have connection, right? They will have a lot of stress. They wanna know how to manage themselves. They're gonna know how to manage you guys. They got to know how to manage their co-workers. So that's where it falls under EQ, right? The emotional quotient. So they got to have bigger heart now. Now, your stage, you're going to have a bigger brain, right? Now, when you get a little older, my brain shrinks, but my heart become bigger, right? So this stage, your brain is big. Now, when you get to this stage, your brain shrinks back, but your heart is bigger, okay? It doesn't mean that you don't use your brain anymore. You still need to read and study and learn, but not as much as your heart, okay? Now, you still do SQ, but not as much. Now, let's say I pass this age, and now I'm old, right? So I'm about 50. Now, I really need to focus on my SQ, which is the spiritual quotient, right? I still have to have my EQ, and I still have to have my IQ also, right? So because of that, the SQ doesn't necessarily mean that it is just EQ plus IQ. It is a separate entity, right? So this is a general guideline, of course, right? It might be unique to different individuals.
You're on mute.
All right, okay, so let's continue. Okay, so a lot of you who learn Noble Eightfold Path with me familiar with this triangle, right? Yes? Okay, so Noble Eightfold Path, you all know that it has right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, okay? Then right view and right intention. All right? Now, what we want you to do is we want you to compare this and this. Okay? So they should fall and overlap on each other very well. So when you're young, when you're learning, what are you learning? You're learning how to talk. You're learning how to speak in front of the audience. You want to be well versed in the language that you're studying, in math, in science, right? In English. Then you can take right action. Only then it will lead you to the right livelihood. Now, this is where you use your IQ mostly. That's where you are. Now, when you get a little older, right? Now you put right effort. Now you don't throw away these, you're putting right effort into all this. Okay, so you gotta consider all these three come here. But you're gonna put right effort into all these. And you're gonna have right mindfulness, and you're gonna concentrate. Since you're focusing on your EQ here, you need all these, right mindfulness and right concentration, right? This is where you need to control your stress level. I'm a father. Okay, I have 3 kids. Fortunately, only 1 wife.
Wow.
And a few jobs. If I don't know how to manage those, what will happen? I will not be able to have good EQ, right? So for me to be able to handle it well, I not only that I have to have these, I have to put right effort into this. I gotta know how much effort I put into my job, how much effort I put into my kids and my wife and my friends and my family and my parents and this and that. That is self-management. Not only that at work, I gotta manage my coworkers, my higher boss, and my lower coworkers. All coworkers at the same level. So for me to be able to do that well, I got to have right mindfulness and right concentration. So that play mainly in my middle age, where I am and where your parents are, right? So you can ask your mom and dad if they're doing these, and they are. Now, when we get a little older, you will see 6 are these 6 here. I don't throw away these, I still need those, but this is where I focus on my spiritual quotient, right? So the more important thing at this point is I gotta have right view for my samsara. I gotta have right intention for my next life and samsara, right? Now that's where this is the third portion of our life. Now, so this Noble Eightfold Path and this SQ, the IQ, the EQ, and XQ should overlap very beautifully. Okay? Now, so what I want you to do is, this is your homework. I want you to draw these triangles, overlap these Noble Eightfold Path, and your first stage, second stage, and third stage. And I want you to put in things that what you will do a little bit more specific. Okay? I just don't want you to come up with the same exact thing as I am showing here. I want you to come up with something specific what you will do. Okay? So for example, I want you to come up what you will put in here, depending on what you want to be in life. Say, for example, you want to be a doctor. What kind of books you're going to read? What are you going to do? Right? What kind of library you want to go? What kind of website you want to look? What kind of movie you will watch? Right? What kind of game you will play? Okay? Now, what kind of EQ will you focus on? What kind of connection will you have? So, for example, if you want to be a doctor, you should be hooking up with other kids who are interested in medical field. Or you should look for other parents who are in medical profession, right? That's why EQ, right? Now, SQ at this point, you can just say very simple about, I'm going to pray and meditate a little bit. You don't have to focus too much. But when you get to this age, what are you going to do? When you get to this age, what are you going to do, right? You need to have a plan for your whole life till your death, right? Just because you're young today, it doesn't mean that you will never get old. Definitely, you are going to get old. You gotta have a plan, right? So that's your homework, and you gotta submit that to me before next week. Okay? So, all right. So this is just Noble Eightfold Path that all of you already knew. Sil McVie, the right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, right vision, and right intention. Now I am going to put these slides on the Facebook so that your parents can actually download it for you as a reference, okay? So what is EQ? What is emotional intelligence? So that's what we are going to discuss today. Now, first look at this here. So emotional quotient, first you need to understand yourself. What does it mean by that? You need to understand your own emotion. If you don't know you're angry, how are you going to control your own emotion in your life? If you don't know how to control your own life, there's no way you can control or help others, right? If you yourself is very poor, I give you this example all the time. You want to donate $1 to the homeless guy, but what you have is only 50 cents. There's no way that you can donate $1 to the homeless guy. If you want to send love and kindness to the others who are suffering, but you yourself is very angry and stressed and throwing temper tantrum, there's no way that you can send love and kindness to those poor people or people who are sick. So trying to gain higher EQ or emotional quotient, first of all, you need to understand yourself. First of all, you need to understand your own mind, right? What's happening in your mind? What's happening in your body, right? Am I being lazy? Am I being angry? Am I confused? Am I ignorant? So that's your first step. Only when you understand yourself very well with good self-awareness, now you will be able to understand the others, right? Only then you will know a friend of yours is needing help from you or not, or a friend of yours is crying, depressed, angry, you will be able to help that friend. So first start with yourself, then others. Only then you'll be able to manage yourself, then you'll be able to manage others. Now, that's a very simple thing, right? To gain your higher EQ, higher emotional quotient. Now, to get that emotional intelligence or emotional quotient, some people just call it EQ, some people call it EIQ, emotional intelligence quotient. Now, that includes 4 different categories. So first is self-awareness. It's right here. The other is self-management. Okay. Now, the other is understanding other, which is the social awareness, which is here, right? Then relationship management, meaning your relationship with the others. Now, you do this all together at the same time, but first you need to focus on this, right? How do you get self-awareness? How do you know you are angry? How do you know you're sad? How do you know you're lazy? How do you know you're ignorant, right? So you're gonna know your story. Not only that you know your story, you're gonna know how that story affects you, right? What is your story? Story about, oh, my brother took away my toy. Oh, my friend gossiped about me, which is not true. My boyfriend left me. My girlfriend said bad things to me. My father's mad at me. My mother didn't give me the time to play games. Whatever the story is, and how is it affecting you, right? Now next, make peace with your past. A lot of us talk too much in our mind, right? So a lot of the time, you don't have any person around you. You have your imaginary friend that you're talking, right? You might be talking to your friend, but that friend is not around you, but you're talking in your imagination. Now, a lot of us tend to remember bad memories. Oh, that girl, she did that to me. That guy, he said this to me. Now, you always live in your past, and you don't make peace with your past, right? You recall your past, you're angry, you're sad. So here it said, if you want to gain your emotional quotient, your emotional intelligence, make peace with your past. Know your belief, your emotions, and your behavior patterns. Before you know others, you're going to know yourself. What are my beliefs? What is my belief system? What are my emotions? Do I tend to be always sad? Do I tend to be always angry? Right? I know myself, I used to be very angry guy. Very. Well, I didn't know when I was young, right? Now, some of you will have similar pattern like I am. Some of you will be very angry for no reason. Oh, food is cold. Mom is giving me this food. I don't like it, mommy. Don't you know that? You're angry for no reason. It's raining. It's hot. It's cold. It's this, it's that. You don't have to find a big reason to be angry. You're angry for no reason. Some of you are just sad. Oh, I don't know. My mommy doesn't love me. Oh, my daddy seems to love my brother than I. Okay, that's your belief. That's your emotion. That's your behavior patterns. You're gonna know. Because that's how you will be unless you really realize that and change it. Now, what will happen is that when you have friends, now if your friends say a little bit, either you're angry and you fight with that friend, or you're sad and crying the whole day. Now, if you don't know that, if you don't change that pattern, when you get older, when you become a teenager, you'll be fighting with your friends, or you'll be sad just because your friend doesn't talk to you that day. Maybe your friend is just busy with his or her studies, but you're just one-sidedly thinking, oh, maybe she doesn't like me anymore. Maybe he doesn't want to be friends with me anymore. And then you're sad. It will be even worse. You have a boyfriend or girlfriend if they ever leave you, right? So it is very important that for you to build up your emotional quotient, you really need to know your belief system. You really need to know your emotion. And the same thing, you're going to know your relationship patterns. What kind of relationship do I really have? Now you can look at it, those of you who have brothers and sisters. Do I fight with my brother and sister all the time? Do I argue? Do I throw things away? Or do I get sad and cry just because my brother yanked a toy from my hand? Right? So you can analyze yourself to have your self-awareness today. You don't have to be my age or your parents' age. You can do it now. Now write it down what your pattern is and correct it, right? Now, on your homework, I want to see that, right? I want you to tell me, and you tell your parents, Mommy, I think this is me. I think I have this pattern. I have this type of belief, and I'm going to change this. Nobody is born perfect. Nobody, right? So the key is you need to know where you are, what you are, and move it to a better level, right? Now, only when you know this, you will be able to go to this level, which is your self-management. Read this, learn skills for breathing and relaxation. That's what a lot of us do, right? We meditate. Basically, it's a breathing exercise. We relax, right? Guided muscle relaxation meditation. You all do that every day with us, right? Anapana is a breathing exercise. Now remember, this is not written by Buddhists. This is not written by Buddha or Christian. This is nothing related to religion. This is all about human management, right? So learn skills for breathing and relaxation. Complete your basic emotional healer walk. Only then you know this, you will be able to heal your emotional problems. Learn skills for soothing and motivating yourself. What soothes me? Is that K-pop music? Is that meditation? Is that Christmas music? Right? Anything that also help you to calm down and focus. Not to be lazy. If you're just listening and drifting away by listening to K-pop music and not doing your schoolwork or homework, that's not good, right? But you can focus and you're listening to some soothing song. That's great, right? Maintain healthy eating and exercise. So with the COVID, I hope a lot of you are still doing some exercise and eating healthy at home, right? Now, this is important. So you're going to have this and this together. Only the next step you can go to social awareness, right? Understand non-verbal social signals, right? So if someone gives you a sign or someone make a face to you, what does it mean? Are they asking for help? Or are they being mean to me? How do I handle that? Right? Do I react and be mean to that person? Or do I just smile and go talk to that person straight and tell him or her that, hey, that's not right. I didn't do anything wrong to you. Let's talk about it in a positive way. You see, this is what it means. Develop a positive view of others. No matter what they do, that's their own problem, not your problem. What you should do is you always try to keep your positive views, right? They may be mean to you, but just because they are mean to you, it doesn't mean that you need to be mean to them back. You need to be positive to them. It doesn't mean that you're gonna just put up with that. You just go tell them that, hey, that's not right. Let's work it out together. Let's be positive. Understand basic human emotional needs. If someone's crying because they are stressed, you just can say, hey, stop crying. It won't work, right? You really need to understand what kind of feeling they're having. Understand games and personal integrity. Now here, games doesn't mean the games that you're playing. Now here, games, it means games of life, right? Not the electronic game you're playing either, right? So we're talking about games here means you're a game player, meaning what you need to do in life. You need to understand those. Only then your social awareness will be better. Once you have these three, you can go to relationship management, develop skills for reflective listening and empathy. Only then you'll be able to listen to others, right? Let's say your brother is crying, your sister is crying, right? Only when you have these, you'll be able to listen to, hey sis, what's going on? What happened? Tell me. There might be something that you cannot do anything, but at least just by saying, hey sis, tell me what happened. Then they tell you their problem. Just because they open up to you, they feel great. Even though you didn't do a thing, just by saying, let me listen, that's a great help. With empathy, of course. Learn skills for healthy assertiveness. What is assertiveness, Sophia Tom?
No, I'm not sure what that means.
Okay. All right, Brian.
I think self-awareness means like you know what's going on inside you.
My question is about assertiveness. Assertive. What is being assertive? If someone is assertive,
I
what?
thought I meant I saw you said self-awareness.
Okay.
I don't really know what that means.
Okay, Miranda,
Oh, I'm not sure either.
you're not sure. Okay, all right. So being assertive means being firm. Okay. Now, assertive is, let's say, you believe in one thing. your friend or your father or your mother tell you the opposite, but you're sure, then you're very assertive. But you don't fight, you don't argue. Assertive means you stand very firm on your ground. Hey, mommy, I think this is right because of so and so and so, and you have the explanation, right? It may be even your great-great-grandfather or myself or your teacher or the pom-pom, anyone you don't change because you're sure. But you don't say it negatively. When you're assertive, you're positive, okay? You're firm, okay? You stand on your ground. So that's what it means by assertiveness. You don't back off, okay? Because you believe in what you're doing, because you have the strong belief system. Of course, now there's a conflict between you and your parents or your brother or your friends. Now you need to know how to solve that conflict. You have good conflict resolution skills. Okay, now if you get to even higher level, you don't have any more problem, but people around you will have problems. Okay, don't think that your parents have no problem. They have a lot more problem than you do. I have more problems than my kids, right? Sometimes they help me out. So now, when you get to a certain level, you may not have much problem, but people around you, your friends, your coworkers will have a lot of problem. Now you need to know how to help them by supporting them and affirming the others. Now, this is the brief about how you gain the emotional intelligence. Now, the reason why I'm teaching you this is because I don't have to teach you about intellect IQ, right? Intellectual quotient, that's what you are already doing at school. All of you are straight A patients. You go to school, if school is open, or right now you're on Zoom doing all your work, right? Your parents push you to excel in your class. You work really hard, right? A lot of you are engaged school, great programs. So you guys are already good at IQ. But you guys don't know much about EQ because EQ is not being taught in school, right? That's where we play, right? We need you to understand about EQ. We need you to understand how you gain EQ. Okay? Now, let's talk about opposite of EQ. What do you think opposite of EQ is? What is making you not to have good emotional quotient? What do you think? Jackson.
IQ.
IQ? No, that's not the right answer. So let's read this and you will find the answer. Okay, now let's look at this. Now you are familiar with this picture, right? This is the iceberg, right? And I told you last week that Titanic sank because the sailor who was watching initially thought that this is just a little small iceberg. But what he didn't know is that there was a gigantic iceberg underneath. Now in life, there are problems, especially when you become older and when you are working, you have a job. Now, let's say you are a boss up here, and only 4% of the problem are known to executive, meaning only 4% of the problem come to you. The other 90% you don't know, right? So here, 100%, there's a lot of problem here. Okay, now if you're a team leader, you know only 74%. If you're a manager, you know 9%. If you're executive, you're the CEO of the boss, you know only 4% of the problem. So what is common here? How come from 100% the problem, is that because problem solved? No, it is because they don't know, right? So what's the word that we use all the time? And in fact, we just learned about it in the song that we learned, the first nidana. What is the first nidana? Josh, that?
Ignorance.
Ignorance. Very good. Ignorance means you don't try to understand. You don't try to learn. So here, self-awareness, if for you to get self-awareness, you got to get rid of your ignorance, right? If you have too much ignorance, you will never get self-awareness. Then you can even master this and no way you're going to get this level. So the first thing that you need to get rid of is ignorance. That's the first nidana. Okay? So that's why here, the first nidana is called ignorance. Right? That's the song that you learned today from Saya, which is in today. Now, this is the main basic of our samsara. This is the main basic of 12 links of dependent origination, the most important thing in Buddhism, in life. You need to understand your ignorance is the one that made you to go round and round in samsara. Right? That's why it said ida pasayata. This leads to that, meaning this ignorance leads to that ignorance. Because of the patisat samupara beget. Because of that, this patisat samupara means that 12 links of dependent origination, we go round and round and round. Right? That's why here it said aware, aware, aware. Being aware is beyond compare. We can compare this awareness in Buddhism. Okay? So I tell you all the time, if you want to sum up all the preachings of Buddha, Buddha preached for 45 years, thousands and thousands and thousands of sutras, right? You sum it up with one word, that is awareness. To be complete, self-awareness, right? If you have self-awareness, that drives away your ignorance. Now, if you drive away your ignorance, you get liberated from samsara. Okay? Now, that ignorance make you to have this problem, make you to have low EQ, right? Now, that's why this EQ is important. That's why this ignorance or getting rid of ignorance is important. Okay? So we're going to stop here today. I hope you understand why we're teaching you this song and this Mingla Sutta related to the Patissasamuppada or 12 links of dependent origination, and why this EQ is very important in our life. All right, so I am going to stop here today.